Hello, it is August 1st, 2026, and right now it is 12:22 p.m. Right now, I have to talk about the child journal, basically how a child cannot be blamed in a setting where the adults are not blamed. Never blamed. Instead, the adults were all running sex schemes and money fraud with law enforcement, and how this setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around the child has been enormously exaggerated by people like my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters, who were caught lying on November 20th, early January 2026, early April 2026, and just recently, right now in the month of July, for Ibrahim, the Greedy Framer, trying to push through another lie before he was caught red-handed fabricating. So basically, 4 times that these people try to exaggerate false testimonies against me, and the courts have to realize the fact that it would only be something that anyone could have been saying around me as a child and not anything that anyone could have been doing. Whereas what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011 was incredibly dangerous. He was encouraging people to go join terror groups every single day from his house before he had to be tipped off by the government, by law enforcement, right after they put a government informant in there in order to find out exactly what he was doing. And we know that there was a government informant, since there was only one person who was disagreeing with him every single day from his sermons, where he would have around 50 people in his sermons every single night. Now, before he was tipped off. So basically what ended up happening was, this was the case and scenario. The most dangerous thing about what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011 was the fact that he had around 50 people in his sermons every single night. And not any of those 50 people were disagreeing with him, clearly showing that they agreed that people should join terror groups and mass murder innocent human beings, probably even encouraging them to do so in Ireland itself. He was doing this every single night. And how many of these 50 people were actually joining terror groups, coming back and forth from terror groups? We don't know how many of those people committed mass murders against innocent human beings. We don't know what the death toll is around what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011. We don't know. All we know is that he was caught doing this in 2011 with me being a witness and law enforcement being a witness. And law enforcement was first forced to put in a government informant in there to see exactly what was going on. And that government informant was the only one disagreeing with my dad, the Greedy Framer, in his sermons. And my dad, the Greedy Framer, did not listen to him. We did not listen to him, think that he was even a government informant, and kept going on, due to which they were forced to tip him off. Either through themselves or through one of my dad, the Greedy Framer's Framer sisters, due to which even I know that he was definitely tipped off, since if a person has that sermon going on from his house with 50 different people, none of them disagreeing with him, every single night, till one night, all of a sudden, everyone disappears, the entire circus tents are gone, circus animals are gone, noise is gone, then he definitely either had a change of heart or he was tipped off, and obviously he was tipped off either by law enforcement themselves or by law enforcement telling one of his Framer sisters to tell him to stop doing this, which is not how they were supposed to handle it. The way they were supposed to handle it is how they handled my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters right before November 20th, where they put in a government informant. They found out about the fabricated false testimonies that they were trying to make against me all for November 20th, 2025, and then the subsequent lies that they were planning on making against me for that were supposed to be made after November 20th, 2025. They found out about everything, and the fact that these people had absolutely nothing against me except for lies, which is what Ibrahim, the Greedy Framer, the drug-addicted sex addict's envious mother, confessed to the government informant, saying that she had absolutely nothing against me except for lies, and that she wanted help in exaggerating those lies. So that was a good thing, and that was exactly how I think they should handle it. Now, handle criminals like my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters. Now, the thing that I have to let everyone know about is the fact that there's a huge difference between what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011 and what anyone could have said around me as a child. What anyone could have said around me as a child would only be saying and not doing. It would not harm anyone. It would not encourage anyone to go join terror groups. It would not radicalize anyone or give sermons to anyone in the masses from his house, to be going around and joining terror groups and doing things of that certain nature. Not only that, my mother had already taken permission from law enforcement for me to be there when I was an 11-year-old child, letting law enforcement know that, hey, look, I have to leave my child behind for a while more, but whatever my child could have said that could be considered even remotely bad would not be me. It would be anyone adult supervising my child, only temporarily, daily, only till he gains a slightest bit of mental maturity. After which time, my child would never be around there ever again. My mother fulfilled that promise the moment I became even slightly mentally mature as a child, never for me to be seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. Now, we know for a fact that my mother did not remove me from all settings when I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child due to us being tipped off. For one reason is the fact that on February 15, 8:30 p.m., my mother said very clearly that she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free till I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And the other reason, due to her fear that I would run out of the door alone when she'd be gone to work. The other reason, obviously, is the fact that if we were tipped off, we would have been tipping other people off who could have even remotely have said anything bad around me as a child when I was being adult supervised. And no one was tipped off by me, but instead everyone was tipped off by law enforcement. Just like how they tipped off my dad, the Greedy Framer, in 2011, they tipped off us after the wedding incident. They tipped off everyone else as well. And we know this from facts and evidences due to the fact that law enforcement's money fraud only stopped around 2 months ago when government got on their backs and forced them to stop it. And their sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws are continuous right now as we speak. So basically, it had to be law enforcement tipping everyone off, and we know this from facts and evidences, since the sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws started from the year 2001, and they're still ongoing right now. And their money fraud, it literally only stopped around 2 months ago after it had been run for years and years. So it had to be law enforcement tipping everyone off, and that's just common sense facts. So basically, yeah, my mother not only fulfilled her promise the moment I gained a slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. We weren't tipped off or anything like that, or also if we were, we would have been tipping other people off, and that's not what happened. So it was law enforcement tipping everyone off. So basically, yeah, that is the scenario that it's incomparable to what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011, and he wasn't just saying this. The other thing that has to be considered is the fact that my mother had already spoken with law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, and she had let them know the truth, which was that it had to be done till I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, only due to her being a single mother, and only temporarily, daily, and only until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and that's exactly what happened. The other thing that has to be considered is the fact that not only did she fulfill her promise the moment I became even slightly mentally mature, but also the fact that she has never been heard uttering one word considered bad her entire life, and neither have I even remotely been in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again from the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And even before then, if anyone said anything bad, it would never be my mother. It would only be one of law enforcement's own BFFs that they have been running sex schemes with such as Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, or people that they've been running money fraud with. So not my mother at all. The other thing that has to be considered is the fact that my mother said that she was at work, which is why she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free. And the facts and evidences will also show that she was working at fast food restaurants at that time, and she was never present in that setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child. And after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never present in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. And we were not tipped off. We know this from facts and evidences due to the fact that after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and I was never present in any settings ever again. We were not the people tipping people off. In fact, there's absolutely zero conversations of us talking about us being tipped off by law enforcement at all whatsoever. Instead, it was law enforcement themselves tipping everyone off, and that is exactly what happened. We know this from facts and evidences, not just from the sex schemes that law enforcement has been running with Uncle Joey's in-laws since the year 2001, but also due to the money fraud that law enforcement has been running for years and years that only stopped about 2 months ago. So basically, before I get into the child journal and let everyone know that children are not supposed to be blame for things that adults are not blamed for. The first thing that the audience, the courts have to understand is the fact that it has never happened in human history where a trial is conducted where it's the person against the defense or against the accused are not prosecution lawyers or law enforcement, but people that have absolutely the most invalid motives against the accused possible, and they have been found to have been fabricating lies against the accused over and over and over and over again. And not only fabricating lies against the accused, the people who are narrating the trial are not anything related to law enforcement, the prosecution, nor are they people that have witnessed the accused commit any crimes. That would be a joke considering how many tries they've had with their false testimonies, and only to be found out that every single time they were lying over and over again. Yeah, they were they're not the prosecution, they're not law enforcement, they're not even people that have ever even remotely witnessed me commit any crimes or even attempting to do so, or even talking about any crimes that I wanted to commit ever in my life. We know this from facts and evidences due to the fact that these people have been given multiple tries in trying to make false testimonies against me for November 20th, 2025, early January 2026, early April 2026, and right now in the month of July, once again for the fourth time, Ibrahim, the greedy framer, the drug-addicted sex addict, was trying one more time to make up false testimonies against me, and he was caught for the fourth time since November 20th, 2025, which his envious mother fabricated against me and him knowing fully about it. So basically, it would be a joke to consider that they've ever witnessed me commit any crimes, attempt to do so, or even talk about doing so, since if that was true, they would have said it by now, and instead of all the lies that they have fabricated against me over and over and over and over again. So basically, it's the first time in probably human history where a trial is conducted where the other side, except for the defense, is not prosecution, it's not law enforcement, but they're narrators that have lied against the accused over and over and over and over again. They have never witnessed the accused commit any crimes, attempt to do so, or even talk about doing so. And the entire time I would have ever known any of these narrators, I was being watched 24/7, which means that it's literally impossible for me to have committed any crimes, attempted to have done so, or even talked about doing so in front of them, not only due to me being watched 24/7 and there being no evidence of it, but also due to the fact that they've had 4 tries so far of trying to falsify testimonies against me, of trying to accuse me of wanting to or trying to commit some sort of a crime where it was fully found out that it was complete and total fabrication and lie from their part. So basically, except for these facts about them lying and exaggerating false testimonies against me, being found at least 4 times, you also have the fact that their motives are incredibly invalid, where they have been found to have invalid motives, where Ibrahim's envious mother confessed to the government informant that this was all about money. She was extremely envious of the brain savant potential money that artificial intelligence had predicted for my brain savant, and that we know this from for a fact due to the fact that after they were found fabricating their early January 2026 false testimonies after their November 20th false testimony, we know this for a fact since right afterwards Ibrahim's envious mother went straight for the money. She started blackmailing me with price tags mainly of $60 million starting February 21st, after they were told on February 10th that the courts knew from the government informant that these were all lies that were fully fabricated, and that the person fabricating with them was in fact a government informant who was told about all these lies that cannot obviously be used in court. So she went straight for the money, blackmailing me with price tags of $60 million at least 8 times after February 21st, realizing that she'd already been caught lying against me at least twice. And not only that, she tries to get me to marry her daughter on March 9th, and then April 11th, and then right now on July 18th, Ibrahim asked law enforcement to ask me basically a Ponzi scheme where his sister is way too young and ugly for me to want at all. I'm not interested in her, and he knows this for a fact. He basically wants to run a Ponzi scheme where he wants me to force to be sign a prenup marriage agreement, and so that they could harass me in court all my life for money, just like how they're harassing me right now to enviously lock up my brain savant, only because they know that they're not going to get any of the money that artificial intelligence has predicted my brain savant of having. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that is what it is. It cannot. It's highly illegal. These people's motives, it's not just them enviously lying against me at least 4 times on November 20th, early January 2026, early April 2026, and right now in the month of July 2026. But you also have to consider the fact that that their motives are incredibly invalid. Ibrahim's envious mother, his framer mother, who is working with my dad, the greedy framer, and further greedy framer, confessed to the government informant, saying that this was all about money and that she wanted to enviously lock up my brain savant so that no one could get the brain savant money that artificial intelligence has predicted about my brain savant that they know that they not going to get. So, which is why after they were caught with their first set of false lies and testimonies in early January 2026, these people went straight for they basically went straight for the money, and they started blackmailing me with price tags of $60 million at least 8 times after the February 21st to try to see what the chances are of me giving them the illegal assurances of this money. Obviously, I told law enforcement right away that I knew for a fact that Ibrahim's envious mother confessed to the law enforcement government informant of these lies that they're obviously just caught with, due to which she's sending me these blackmail price tags, since there's no guarantee that I would give this money after my brain savant is freed anyways. And the only reason they would ask is because they wanted that this is the only option left for them, and because they've obviously confessed to the government informant before November 20th of money being the main envious motive behind wanting to lock up my brain savant, due to which they went straight for greed as soon as they were found out with their first set of false testimonies right after November 20th, 2025. So basically, yeah, I told law enforcement that I won't pay any, I won't even give any illegal assurances of any of this money. And then Ibrahim's envious mother then tried to get me to marry or sign a prenup Ponzi scheme for her daughter on March 9th and April 11th, which obviously I refused. And then Ibrahim tried it once again right now on July 18th after June 24th. Brain savant test was reanalyzed. He tried to run this Ponzi scheme for his drug addictive behavior right now recently. So basically, yeah, that is pretty much what happened. These people's motives are incredibly invalid. It's all around money, and my dad, the greedy framer, has even tried to exchange incest for illegal assurances of money after his lies were caught over and over again. We're on February 11th at 3:17 a.m. he tried to he sent me a porn star's picture with his sister's first name on it, and he was told by the courts at that time that this is an open advertisement for incest. The man in his 5-foot-long beard could not care less. On March 7th, 2026, he sends me the same porn star's picture 3 times, and then not only this, he shamelessly sends me only 3 days after March 7th, on March 10th, and every single day afterwards, he shamelessly sends me sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling his other sister, Afreen, on March 10th, and every single day afterwards, making it inarguable that the man was trying to use incest for illegal assurances of money, since he was also sending me blackmail price tags for millions of euros to try to check to see if I was willing to make illegal assurances of money with him or not, which obviously I told law enforcement right away, these people will never get a single penny out of me at all, not one bit. So, but before we continue, here are certain things that prove their invalid motives from just 2 days ago, in the past 2 days. So today is August 1st. Yesterday was July 31st. And the day before yesterday was July 30th. So basically, this is from July 30th to 2 p.m. And this is Further Greedy Framer trying to advertise her daughters to me who look nothing like that, and she's basically now saying just take any of my daughters, whoever you want, and marry them. Basically a Ponzi scheme where she knows that I'm not interested in her daughter. She just wants me to sign a prenup marriage agreement with her so that she could harass me for money for the rest of my life, like the $60 million that she sent me starting February 21st at least 8 times. And then you got to remember the timing of this. It was February 21st she sent it to me at least 8 times, only because now she's obviously going to put that in the prenup agreement and try to get that money out of me from this prenup Ponzi scheme, despite her knowing that I'm not interested in marrying her daughter. She sent me at least 70 blackmails in less than a month, the last month and a half since June 16. She sent me at least 70 marriage requests for her daughters since June 16, 2026, in less than a month and a half, in less than the last month or so, in less than the last month and a half or so. She sent me at least 70 marriage requests for me to marry her daughter, to try to get me to sign this prenup marriage agreement, while aggressively arguing in court that my brain savant should get locked up only because her daughter's not getting the money, so no one else's daughter should get it either. These people's motives are incredibly invalid. Not just that, you also have to look at the fact that Fur the Greedy Framer was fully involved in November 20th. The government informant, as soon as he was announced, she was kicked out of the spokesperson stand immediately. She was making lies against me early January 2026 that as soon as the government informant was announced, it was found out that these were planned lies from before November 20th. And then she made aggressive lies against me early April 2026 that we found out from phone conversations retrieved from the facts and evidences from the phone conversations retrieved, that every single statement that Fur the Greedy Framer made in early April 2026 were complete and total lies. And right now in July 2026, they were trying to fabricate another false testimony against me before they were caught red-handed doing so. So basically, incredibly invalid motive from Fur the Greedy Framer. She's been trying to force me to marry her abnormal looking ugly daughters since June 16th, since the past month and a half, even though I've told her over and over again that I am not interested in your abnormal looking ugly daughters. And right now she's basically saying just marry any of my daughters. I'm not interested in any of them. I told her from before I do not want them, and she sent me at least 70 marriage requests that are basically Ponzi schemes where I'm forced to sign a prenup marriage agreement with her abnormal looking ugly daughters, and that's still ongoing till like about 2 days ago. And I'm only showing you the ones from past 2 days ago, not showing you the 70 that have been sent to me, obviously. So this is basically Ibrahim the Greedy Framer. This is the day before yesterday, July 30th. Today's August 1st, around 3 p.m. And he sends me this ad basically asking me to scam other people's daughters that are hearing court chatter on my Brain Savant and the June 24th Brain Savant test being overanalyzed. And he wants me to scam other people's daughters into first sleeping with me, despite me not marrying that girl or having any intention in doing so. I'm supposed to be sleeping with her and then passing her around to a drug-addicted sex addict like Ibrahim, who had the police call on him by my elementary school teacher's son, and on July 10th, around 7 p.m., he was rejected by her again, due to which on July 10th at 8:45 p.m., he was trying to advertise himself in front of my car cameras around 8:45 p.m. to try to run after her again. His motive is also incredibly invalid. He's made lies against me 4 times. November 20th, his envious mother made it against me. He knew about it when it was being fabricated. Then he pushed early January 2026 very aggressively against me. Then he also pushed early April 2026 against me very aggressively. Early January were already confessed lies to the government informant. Early April was found to be a complete and total lie from the facts and evidences retrieved from the phone conversations retrieved. And right now in July 2026, he was caught trying to fabricate another lie against me once again. And his motive is incredibly invalid, since on July 18, he was trying to get me to sign a Ponzi scheme for his sister, despite knowing that she's way too young and ugly ugly for me to want to go with her, and he was just trying to get me to sign this Ponzi scheme for his drug addiction behavior, his bad habits. Since June 24th brain savant test was reanalyzed, and obviously this is the main motive for why they're doing everything, since his envious mother confessed to the government informant that she was doing everything due to extreme envy and no other reason why. So basically, yeah, this is the day before yesterday, July 30th, 3:35 p.m. Same thing. Fer the Greedy Framer is advertising her daughters to me, who in reality look extremely ugly and abnormal. And she's basically saying, just choose any of my daughters, even though I've told her a billion times, I'm not interested in your daughter at all. Not one of them, not any of them. This is a day before yesterday. Once again, she's advertising her daughter to me. And then her and Ibrahim's family are sending me blackmail price tags for their favorite. This is the day before yesterday, July 30th. Since today's August 1st, this is the same, their favorite, $60 million price tag that they sent me 8 times on February 21st, and afterwards this is $64.5 million. You could see it's coming from Florida. This method of sending blackmail price tags, you can ask law enforcement, has been well known since the month of February, where they would put the state of Florida in there, and then they would put a number amount that they would send to me. This method of sending blackmail price tags has been well known since February 2026. You can ask law enforcement and they will tell you about this, that they know that this method has been used in the month of February, and they're still trying it right now to try to check to see what their chances of getting illegal assurances of money from me would be before my brain savant would get freed. This is $64.5 million. It's coming from Florida, and this is only from the day before yesterday. So basically, my dad, the Greedy Framer, is a different story. My dad, the Greedy Framer, was caught begging law enforcement and his Framer sisters to fabricate November 20th against me. Then he begged the courts to let him narrate again, only for him to narrate the same set of lies that the courts knew were pre-planned from before November 20th between my dad's Framer sisters and my dad, the Greedy Framer, only for him to repeat these lies in early January 2026, letting the courts know that my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters were planning this for a long time to enviously lock up my brain savant, since everyone was told about it by the year 2023 and 2024. So they had been planning this for a while to lock up my brain savant in any way, shape, or form possible. My dad, the Greedy Framer, was not only found to have begged law enforcement and his Framer sisters to make November 20th against me, but also early January 2026 were all lies that after he begged law enforcement, after he begged the courts to let him narrate again, the courts found out, to their surprise, that these were planned lies, not just stated to the government informant before November 20th, but that these planned lies were in fact things that my dad, the Greedy Framer, and his Framer sisters had been planning for a while. Since they didn't discuss it over the phone, they only talked about it with the government informant in person, where my dad, the Greedy Framer's Framer sisters, let the government informant know that, hey, look, we have these planned lies that we're going to make against Hassan, and that we're going to make against Hassan, and that we have planned from before. And after my dad, the Greedy Framer, begged the courts to let him narrate again, we found out that these were in fact planned lies that they've been planning together for a while before, and that basically, the government informant was told about before November 20th that we have these planned lies, we're going to make it against Hassan. These are going to be made after November 20th to make sure that his brain savant money that we cannot get, no one else could get either. And then after this, my dad, the Greedy Framer, tried to offer incest on February 11th, 3:17 a.m. By sending me a porn star's picture named Sunny Leone with his sister Fer's name on it. He was told on February 11th that this is an open advertisement for incest. He only tried it because on February 10th he was told by the courts, we know that these early January lies are lies because your Framer sister confessed to the government informant as these being lies as well. Yeah. So basically, after this, my dad, the greedy farmer, what he ended up doing was he ended up going over and trying incest one more time on March 7th, 2026. Even though he was told February 11th that these are open advertisements for incest, he tried it 3 times. Once again with a porn star named Sunny Leon's picture with his sister's name on it. Then on March 10th, only 3 days later, he started having law enforcement send me sexually explicit pictures of his big fat ugly old sister named Afreen on March 10th, and a woman resembling sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling his big fat ugly old sister Afreen on March 10th on every single day afterwards, clearly showing from facts and evidences that he now, after he was caught with his second lies in early January 2026 and told on February 10th that the courts knew that these were planned lies from even before November 20th, that he was trying incest in exchange for illegal assurances of money, and we know that it was in exchange for illegal assurances of money since after February 17th at 3:02 a.m. he started sending me blackmail price tags, mainly for millions of euros through the government informant all day and night long to try to check to see what the chances of him getting a single penny from me were. And I told law enforcement right there and then he won't ever get a single penny from me at all, no matter what he does or tries. And these incest requests are incredibly disgusting. And I know for a fact he's only trying this due to him realizing that all of he's too many of his lies are caught and that he can't make any more lies anymore. And law enforcement basically told him about that, that I wasn't willing to give a single penny to anyone. And obviously he believed very strongly in the artificial intelligence reports, or else he would not be begging me for this money. While offering incest to me, despite him being told on February 11th that this is an open advertisement for incest. He didn't care, since on February 10th he was told that a second set of lies were caught. He then tried incest again on March 7th, even though he was already told February 11th at 3:17 a.m. that these are open advertisements for incest. Same picture of the porn star with his sister Farah's name on it on March 7th, 2026, 3 times. And then March 10th, 3 days later, he sends me sexually explicit pictures of a woman resembling his disgusting, ugly old predator sister Afreen, and every single day after March 10th, to try to check to see what the chances of him getting illegal assurance of money from me were, while sending me blackmail price tags for millions of euros at the same time. And I told law enforcement right away that I knew that they were caught with a second set of lies, even after creating mass panic and chaos on November 20th. And the second set of lies were obviously confessed to the government informant as being planned lies that his framer sisters had already confessed to the government informant as planning on making against me in early January 2026, which is why he was trying all these incest requests while sending me blackmail price tags for millions of euros. And I told law enforcement right away that you could tell him he's never going to get a single penny from me. So in early April 2026, obviously my dad, the greedy farmer, goes back to court, and this time he abuses everyone in court. He yells at them, he berates them, he abuses them, he makes lies upon lies, and then every time the flaws were found in his statements, he would just be like, "You're twisting my words, you're twisting my words," only for the courts to get sick and tired of him in the end. And they told him, they said, "Mr. Ansari, you've abused every single person in this courtroom while making your statements. If we find out, we're going to retrieve every single phone conversation there is, and if we find out that you lied, once again, we will never let you narrate ever again." They retrieved the phone conversations, every single one they could, and only to find out that every single statement that my dad, the greedy framer, made was a complete and total lie. So yeah, and after that, all of those were done by him. After that, right now in July 2026, they were trying to fabricate another lie and false testimony against me once again. So basically, this is so now what he does is he just begs for forgiveness from me through law enforcement, and even for that, I already told him that there's no room for forgiveness right now. I just want to be left alone. I'm not a talker. I don't talk to anyone. I just want to be left alone. So basically, this is literally from yesterday. So the reason he's asking for forgiveness is he knows he's got nothing to offer to get illegal assurance of money, since he's tried everything from incest with all of his sisters and really disgusting things like his big fat his ugly old wife. On March 12th, 2026, he even asked me to fulfill his sexual perversions by sleeping with her, and you know for a fact that these are sexual perversions, and if you ever saw her, you would know that she's extremely ugly, and you cannot pay someone enough to sleep with someone so ugly. Now he's resorted to basically asking me for forgiveness so that I would give him illegal assurance of money, but even then, I'm not going to do that. And this is just from yesterday, 10:44 a.m. This is the Amafi. Mafi basically means forgiveness, and he's basically asking for forgiveness, which I have no room for giving anyone. And I'm not a talker. I don't talk to anyone. So yeah, it's just not possible. I just want to be left alone by all these money predators and money grabs. I used to talk to my dad, the Greedy Framer, once every 5 years. And right now, in 2025, when he started calling me every other day, I immediately knew that he knew about the Brain Savant money due to which he was doing this. I started ignoring his phone calls, and as soon as I did, he got the message very quickly. He's not going to beg the son of the woman that he used to beat when I was like a child. So what he ended up doing was he just ignored my phone. Like he just stopped calling and trying to beg me to talk to him. Instead, he had law enforcement blackmail me to try to show that he was narrating in my trial against me. And then as soon as I won my case on June 28, 2025, June of last year, 2025, June 28th, he started begging me all day and night long, saying things like, oh, he's remembering the day I was born and this and that. He wasn't even there the day I was born. He is just been trying to get illegal assurance of money for one way or another, and then he would resort between making false testimonies against me to try to enviously lock up my Brain Savant to then begging me all day and night long to talk to him and give him illegal assurance of money, even though we only talk once every 5 years. And now that he's found out about the Brain Savant money and the potential that artificial intelligence has labeled on my Brain Savant, he's been doing this where he enviously tries to lock up my Brain Savant, then he goes to trying to offer incest with illegal assurances of money, illegal price tags for millions of euros all day night long, to now all he does is just ask for forgiveness all day night long to try to check to see what the chances of him benefiting are, and there's absolutely zero chance whatsoever. I just want to be left alone by these money predators. Once every 5 years is how much me and my dad, the Greedy Framer, used to talk, and I just want to be left alone now, seriously. So this is just from yesterday. For the Greedy Framer, my dad, the Greedy Framer's sister, advertising her daughters to me, basically saying, take one of my daughters. And I've already told her since June 16, I am not interested in your daughters. I'm not. And she has still sent me at least 70 blackmail price tags since just June 16, 2026. And whenever law enforcement gets envious, they have my dad, the Greedy Framer, try to argue that my Brain Savant doesn't exist or it doesn't have monetary potential. Well, if it doesn't, then why have you been begging me for forgiveness? Why have you been trying to send me incest requests with this big fat ugly sisters? Why have you been sending me blackmail price tags for millions of euros, even after all the lies that you've been caught with? Obviously, there's money, and you know about it. And if there's no money, then you want to convince people of that. Then why don't you start by convincing your own sister that there's no money, so that she would stop begging me and sending me all these blackmail prenup marriage requests for her daughters, whom I've told her since June 16, I am not interested in marrying your daughter, lady. Stop sending me these requests. And she still sent me more than 70 requests for me to marry her daughter. That is 70 requests for me to marry her daughter since just the last month and a half, since June 16 alone. This is from yesterday. My dad, the Greedy Framer, is sending me blackmail price tag for 18 million euros. 18 million euros just from yesterday. Okay. And then just from yesterday at 6:37 p.m., yesterday he is sending me the same Mafi, asking for forgiveness to try to get illegal assurance of money. And I already told him I'm not a talker. I don't talk to anyone, and I just want to be left alone. And yesterday, basically, July 31st, 10:02 p.m., a.m., Ibrahim, is envious mother and father, the Greedy Framer, sending me these blackmail price tags for $22.5 million again yesterday, even though it's been made known that these are blackmail price tags for that are being sent to me, made known since February 2026. And this is my dad, the Greedy Framer, trying again yesterday. for 2.1 million euros just yesterday. Again, even though this has been made known that these are blackmail price tags. So last night, once again, he asked me for forgiveness, trying to get illegal assurance of money that way. The same Amafi that he keeps trying to use. Mafi basically means forgiveness in my language. So yeah, so their motive is incredibly invalid, without a reasonable doubt, and it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The thing that the courts have to remember is the fact that never have people whose motives have been so clearly invalid been allowed to narrate against the accused in a trial where they've been caught not only lying over and over again, but also begging the accused for forgiveness every time they get caught lying due to one, to get illegal assurance of money from his brain savant, and also sending him blackmail price tags of millions of euros. It's never happened before that someone with such invalid motives are allowed to narrate against the accused in a trial. Even Ibrahim, his family is sending me blackmail price tags for millions of euros right now from just yesterday and the day before, asking me to scam other people's daughters into sleeping with him. And it is just wrong for these people to be narrating in a trial against me when their motives are so clearly invalid. Where Fur the Greedy Framer basically has been asking me to marry her daughter at least 70 times in the last month and a half. Never before has it ever occurred where someone with people with such invalid motives of envy and greed and lust for money are allowed to narrate against the accused in a trial where their motives are so clearly visible and apparent, and they've been caught lying against the accused in major false testimonies, creating mass panic and chaos over and over and over again. This is something that the prosecution does. This is something that law enforcement is supposed to do. The only reason that law enforcement is not narrating in this trial is due to the fact that while I was only there as a child where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, whom I've never seen since I was a child, never met him, despite law enforcement trying numerous times to try to force me to go and meet Uncle Joey over and over again. I've never met him ever again. Due to it no longer being needed, and due to my mother telling law enforcement that once I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity, I would never be seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me ever again. That is exactly what happened. We know for a fact that it was not because of us being tipped off, since if we were tipped off, we would have been tipping other people off. But the facts and evidence show that law enforcement's been the one running their sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001. And how can we be tipping people off like Uncle Joey when there's no evidence of us even meeting with Uncle Joey after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child? And yeah, it's clear from facts and evidences that not only that, law enforcement had also been running money fraud that with other individuals that they only stopped running only about 2 months ago. And so yeah, it's clear from facts and evidences that my mother fulfilled the promises she made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, making sure that I was never in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And it was not due to us being tipped off, since if we were tipped off, then we would have been tipping other people off. But the other people who could have said anything remotely considered bad around me as a child were all tipped off by law enforcement running their sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since the year 2001, money fraud that had been run for years and years till only about 2 months ago, clearly showing from facts and evidences that it was law enforcement tipping everyone off, including us at the wedding incident, including my dad, the Greedy Framer, after 2011. So it was basically what ended up happening was my mother had told law enforcement and gotten permission from law enforcement that I would only be present in a setting where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child, only temporarily, daily, only until I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, which she repeated on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. that she was scared that I would run out of the door alone, due to which she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free while she either worked at fast food restaurants in the afternoon or in factories at night, and that This was only temporarily daily until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. If I repeated anything as a child that any of law enforcement's BFFs like Uncle Joey could have said, then it would have only been due to the immaturity of a child being there and not due to any other reason. But after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was never even remotely seen in any settings where anything even remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever, and not due to us being tipped off. Since if we were tipped off, we would have been tipping other people off. But Uncle Joey, there have been running sex schemes with his in-laws since 2001 and money fraud that were going on for years and years, only stopped about 2 months ago, clearly showing from facts and evidences that it was law enforcement tipping everyone off, including us after the wedding incident, including my dad, the Grady Framer, in 2011, and my mother simply fulfilled the promise that she had made to law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child. We also know from facts and evidences that I was only adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, due to force and necessity of a single mother, due to not only the fact that she removed me from every setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child, but also due to the fact that she would never be present there while I would be adult supervised, clearly showing from facts and evidences that it was due to her either working at fast food restaurants in the afternoon or in factories at nighttime. So basically, facts and evidences clearly show and prove everything there. Not only this, we also know for a fact that my mother was telling the truth when she told law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child that it was never her saying anything you remotely considered bad, since she's been watched 24/7 with me since I was an 11-year-old child, and she's never uttered one bad word considered bad towards anyone in any way, shape, or form ever in my life since I was an 11-year-old child. So yeah, that's what the facts and evidences show, and it's clear from facts and evidences that my mother fulfilled the promise that she made to law enforcement when I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, whereas law enforcement themselves never fulfilled the promise that they made to their country ever, where they have been running their money fraud since 2001 with Uncle Joey's in-laws and their sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, and money fraud that have been run for years and years till only about 2 months ago when the government was forced to step in and stop it very forcefully, since they were run very stubbornly for years and years. So basically, facts and evidences speak for themselves. People that never committed any crimes, never tried to do so, never did anything wrong, people never even said anything even remotely considered bad. That would be my mother, and me not even being in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child cannot be blamed for something that law enforcement's own BFF said around the child after the mother had already gotten permission from law enforcement for the child to be there only temporarily daily till the child gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, which my mother also repeated on February 15 at 8:30 p.m., saying that she was scared that I might run out of the door alone if I was left alone at home alone. And so that child and mother cannot be blamed for something the child and the mother cannot be blamed for something that one of law enforcement's own BFFs could have said around the child that could even remotely be considered bad in any way, shape, or form, especially since the child's mother had already gotten permission from law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child. She was never around when the adult could have said anything even remotely considered bad around me, clearly showing from facts and evidences that she was at work at that time, which is why I had to be adult supervised. She also said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. that she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free due to the fear of me running out of the door alone, and the fact that she's never been heard uttering one word considered bad in any way, shape, or form throughout her entire life, and neither have I even remotely been in a setting where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, clearly showing from facts and evidences, and the fact that we could not have been tipped off since law enforcement tipped everyone off about them being their Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001 with sex schemes and money fraud that have been run for years and years till only about 2 months ago, clearly showing from facts and evidences that my mother's promise was fulfilled the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. And even if I was there in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me as a child, it would only be saying, but it would be saying by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, for which my mother had already gotten permission from law enforcement from before, and she fulfilled her promise the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. No crimes were ever committed around me, nothing bad done, whereas in 2011 we found out exactly what kind of crimes could be committed, where my dad, the Greedy Framer was witnessed by a government informant, not just me, but by a government informant, encouraging people in masses, giving them sermons to around 50 people every single night to go join terror groups every single night from his house after calling those people over to his house. This is an example of a crime that could be committed. No one was harmed around me when I was a child, regardless of what anyone could have said around me. No one was harmed around me as a child, regardless of what any of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey could have said around me while they were adult supervising me as a child. Whereas in 2011, my dad, the Greedy Framer, was calling people over to his house in the masses, around 50 people every single night, and encouraging them to go join terror groups, due to which the government had to first put, the law enforcement had to first put in a government informant. The government informant tried to repeatedly stop him and try to twist his words, as you like to say, but he didn't listen to the government informant. I could see clearly that there was only one person in the 50 people in the sermons that he was giving who was disagreeing with him. My dad, the Greedy Framer, did not care one bit. He still stopped the government informant, and he continued on with his sermons on joining terror groups, committing mass murder and jihad, and how this was what had to be done. So basically, this is basically what had happened, what was going on, and yeah, this is an example, excellent example of what a crime would be, since it was extremely dangerous, the fact that none of those 50 people were actually disagreeing with my dad, the Greedy Framer, which meant that they were all agreeing with him. How many of those people were joining terror groups? How much mass murder have those people committed? We do not know the results of, or what the death toll is that my dad, the Greedy Framer, carries. One thing I could guarantee the courts is the fact that after my dad, the Greedy Framer, was tipped off, we know for a fact he was tipped off, since the circus went away overnight, and I'm not psychic enough to know that he was definitely tipped off, or either he had a change of heart, which obviously he didn't. He was definitely tipped off either by law enforcement themselves or by the law enforcement telling one of his Framer sisters to tip him off. We know this for a fact, since after that one night when he was tipped off, the entire circus was gone. Circus animals are gone, the noise is gone, all the tents are gone overnight, just like that, like as if they wasn't even there from before. And obviously after 2011, I can guarantee you the courts that my dad, the Greedy Framer, joined about 50 different patriotic groups in Ireland, only to show the government over there that he was not recruiting people to mass murder innocent human beings in that country of Ireland at that time in 2011. He only joined these 50 patriotic groups in order to show this to that government over there that he was not encouraging people to join terror groups and mass murder people in that country itself where he was living in, which he was obviously doing, not only witnessed by me, but also witnessed by a government informant. And not only that, he had to be tipped off, just like how Assad was tipped off after the wedding incident, how all law enforcement's BFS were tipped off before they committed sex schemes and money fraud together. But those people in law enforcement, there's absolutely not one incident of them ever committing any crimes around me. It would only be them saying anything around me and not doing anything around me as a child while they were adult supervising me, whereas my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing something around me in 2011. It was incredibly dangerous, and he was encouraging people to go and join terror groups every single day from his house by giving them mass sermons of all of those people. And those people basically, how many of those people were joining terror groups, coming in back and forth? We don't know, since we cannot know that, since proper investigation was not run, and instead my dad, the Greedy Framer, was tipped off, due to which the tents went away from the circus overnight. Everything was gone overnight, all of a sudden. And so, yeah, basically, that is an excellent example of a crime being committed, something wrong being done. How many of those people joined terror groups? We don't know. How much mass murder my dad had committed through those sermons that he was giving every single night before the government was forced to either tip him off or start an investigation. We don't know, because they never did an investigation. They just went and they tipped him off, either themselves or through one of my dad, the Greedy Framer's sisters. So basically, that is an example of a crime being committed. Whereas when I was being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs, like Uncle Joey, that law enforcement's been running sex schemes with since 2001, or money fraud that's been run for years and years, only stopped about 2 months ago. Yeah, anything anyone could have said that would be one of law enforcement's own BFFs around me as a child. For one thing, it would not be a crime. It would only be saying something, regardless how much it would be exaggerated. No one was encouraged to join terror groups. Sermons were not given to 50 people every single night from their houses to go join terror groups. People were not seen around 50 people around people's houses every single night that were agreeing with them on the importance of joining terror groups and committing mass murder against innocent human beings. Nothing of that sort was done. Regardless of how much it could be exaggerated, it could only be something being said around the child. Since nothing was being done, there was not even any doubt on someone being murdered or someone being mass murdered or someone joining terror groups or anything of that sort of nature from the things that could have been said around me as a child while I was being adult supervised. Not only this, while I was being adult supervised as a child, it was the permission was already taken from law enforcement from before. What my mother telling law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child that it would only go on till I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child and never again after that. And that is exactly what happened, and not because of anyone being tipped off. Since if we were tipped off, we would have tipped other people off, and it was law enforcement running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001 and money fraud that have been ongoing till this day today for years and years, only stopped for about 2 months ago. So nothing that could have been said around me as a child by one of law enforcement's own BFFs was a crime in the least bit, since a definition of a crime, an example of it would be what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011, where he was giving mass sermons to people who were agreeing with him, around 50 people every single night, in the importance of joining terror groups and committing mass murders against innocent human beings, due to which, after my dad, the Greedy Framer, was tipped off in the year 2011, not only was the circus gone overnight, but also we know from facts and evidences that he was definitely tipped off by law enforcement, either through them but directly or indirectly by law enforcement contacting one of his Framer sisters and telling him to stop doing this. We know this for a fact, since he was not selling ice cream in 2011. He was encouraging people to mass murder innocent human beings, even in the country of Ireland where he lives in. And we know this for a fact because right after 2011, my dad, the Greedy Framer, went and he joined 50 different patriotic groups, clearly showing that he was trying to establish an alibi for what he had been doing before 2011. And despite him living in that country for more than 40 years, never before 2011 did he ever do this, clearly showing from fact and evidences that he was encouraging people to join terror groups, very seriously doing so, not only witnessed by me, but also witnessed by a government informant, and until he had to be either tipped off or start an investigation. Same law enforcement who tipped off Assad after the wedding incident, and Uncle Joey's in-laws from 2001 with the sex schemes they ran, money fraud that they've been running for years and years, only stopped about 2 months ago, clearly tipped off my dad, the Greedy Framer, due to which the tents went away for the circus overnight right away. So basically, yeah, this is an example of what a crime is going to be. Anything that anyone could have said around me as a child, first of all, it could not have been a crime, and no matter how much it would be exaggerated, no one would be harmed. No one would be encouraged to go join terror groups. No one would join terror groups. Not one person is there a doubt on being murdered due to anything occurring around me as a child being said, no matter how much exaggeration that is involved in what was being said whatsoever. Not only that, I was being adult supervised as a child. Permission was given from law enforcement to my mother. Well, my mother told law enforcement that when I was an 11-year-old child that she has never said anything remotely considered bad around me ever, and that it would only occur where I would be adult supervised by anyone, one of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey, or people that they run sex schemes or money fraud with, until I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. Only until then, and never again after I would gain the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. We know that this was due to the force and necessity of a single mother, due to the fact that my mother would not be around there. Facts and evidences from tax records would show that she was working in fast food restaurants or in factories at nighttime during that time period, and also the fact that there was no other place where I could have been adult supervised at that time until I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, just like how my mother said on February 15, 8:30 p.m. And after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, never again was I seen in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. Not because we were tipped off, since since if we were tipped off, we would have tipped other people off, but we weren't once tipping anyone off, but instead it was law enforcement running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, and money fraud that had been run for years and years, till only about 2 months ago, as the facts and evidences clearly show and prove. So basically, yeah, my mother fulfilled the promise that she made to law enforcement the moment I gained a sight as bit of mental maturity as a child, whereas law enforcement never fulfilled the promise that they made to their country. We also know for a fact that this was only due to the force and necessity of a single mother after she had taken permission from law enforcement due to the fact that she would never be present over there, but instead she would be working in fast food restaurants or during the afternoon time. She would never be present there or in factories at nighttime, clearly showing from tax records as well that she was definitely working at that time, due to which she had to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me for free while she was working. Now, this was due to the force and necessity of a single mother, and anything that could have been said was only said and not done. There were no crimes committed. No matter how much you try to exaggerate anything that anyone could have said around me, no one was harmed, no one was attempted to be harmed, no one was planned to be harmed, nothing of that sort of nature. Not one person was attempted to be harmed in any way, shape, or form. Now, regardless of how much they try to exaggerate it, there was not one person that was harmed in any way, shape, or form. We know this for a fact that it was due to the force and necessity of a single mother, since common sense dictates that if we go back in time right now and I would have to be adult supervised, there's no way that if my mother is still working at fast food restaurants that I could even do anything at all. I can't go work and bring back money and give it to my mother and be like, you could put me in a daycare or something like that. There's no other option except for taking permission from law enforcement, like how my mother did when I was an 11-year-old child, letting me stay there with anyone willing to watch me for free till I gain a sighted bit of mental maturity, and then never again after that, after I gain a sighted bit of mental maturity, would I be seen in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again, with the facts and evidences also showing that my mother has never uttered one word considered bad her entire life against anyone in any way, shape, or form. Neither has my sister, and I was never even remotely seen in any settings where anything remotely considered bad was ever said around me ever again from this moment I gained a sighted bit of mental maturity as a child ever again. So the facts and evidences speak for themselves. Apart from that, you also have a brain scanner that was attached to my brain for years and years, where I met people that were of Christian descent or Jewish people that were Orthodox Jewish with long beards, and I met them with the same level of love and respect for each and every single one of them. My mother has never uttered one word considered bad or racist against anyone in any way, shape, or form. If I would ask her about marrying someone of Jewish descent or something of that sort of nature, she would always accept it, give me an amazing answer. And you know for a fact that my background has been of that sort of nature, since the brain scanner would show and prove that I have never looked down on anyone or wished anything bad for anyone of any race, religion, or ethnicity ever in my life, or even wanted to do something bad to anyone. So clearly the facts and evidences clearly show. Also the fact that if I was going back in time and I had to find another substitute for myself to be adult supervised while my mother worked at fast food restaurants or in factories at night, as the tax records will show from that time period, there's no other option that we have whatsoever. And it's not like anything even remotely considered bad was done. No one was harmed. Nothing was done. No matter how much it would be exaggerated, it would not be like what my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011, where he was encouraging people in masses, around 50 people every single night, to go join terror groups, and each one of those 50 people agreed with him every single night, except for that one government informant that stuck out like a sore thumb, that obviously the courts have already found by now. So yeah, nothing was being done to harm anyone. No one was harmed. No one was attempted to be harmed. Nothing of that sort of nature. No matter how much exaggeration is done, no one was encouraged to go join terror groups or anything of that sort of nature when I was being adult supervised as a child. There was no other option at that time for me to be adult supervised by anyone else, since my mother needed someone to watch me for free only until I gained the sighted bit of mental maturity as a child, and never again after that, as the facts and evidences show that after I gained the sighted bit of mental maturity as a child, never again was I ever in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. Now, there was no crime that was committed around me when I was a child. No one was encouraged to join terror groups in the masses like how my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing in 2011. No one was harmed. harmed, no one was attempted to be harmed, nothing of that sort of nature was ever done. But we're talking about this due to the fact that this is the only talking point left. November 20th, 2025 has been caught. Law enforcement knew about it since early November. They knew that it was about to be fabricated. Early January 2026, there was a child claiming that I said anti-government things to him when I was a 10-year-old child myself. That has been caught. The lies from early April 2026. Phone conversations were retrieved. Facts and evidences prove everything was a lie. July 2026, everything was a lie that they almost tried to fabricate. Ibrahim, the greedy framer, and my dad, the greedy framer, and all the framer sisters tried to fabricate right now in July. They've all basically been caught. So even the group chat false testimony coming out of the overseas pharmacy school has been caught. Other people that they were trying to use to fabricate lies against me, like Adam G and Maruk, have been caught on July 11th fabricating false testimonies against me. They have absolutely nothing except for trying to exaggerate everything that they possibly can from when I was a child, but nothing that was done around me as a child could have been a crime in at least bit. But the points have to be revisited on me being a child due to the fact that this is the only talking point left for law enforcement and my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, even though they should not be allowed to narrate in my trial. Since this is the only talking point left, these talking points have to be revisited on them. That no crime was committed around me, no crime was attempted to be committed around me, no one was encouraged to join terror groups, no one was attempted to be murdered or hurt in any way, shape, or form when I was a child, being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey, whereas in comparison to 2011, where my dad, the greedy framer, was encouraging people to go join terror groups in the masses by giving sermons from his house, around 50 people each and every single night. Government informant had to be placed, and the law enforcement was given one of two choices: either tip off my dad, the greedy framer, or start an investigation. And they obviously tipped him off, just like how they tipped off Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001. People they've been running money fraud with since years and years, since only about 2 months ago. And I said right after the wedding crime and all these people that law enforcement basically tipped off. So basically, yeah, there was no other option that was there when I was a child, being adult supervised by one of law enforcement's own BFFs like Uncle Joey. My mother had already taken permission from law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child, and never again was I ever seen in any settings where anything remotely considered bad was ever said around me after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity. No one was harmed. No one was attempted to be harmed. No one was encouraged to go join terror groups. No one was given sermons to go join terror groups or commit mass murder, like how my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011. Nothing that was done was considered to have harmed anyone in any way, shape, or form possible. If I had gone back in time right now, this would also be the only option there would be, unless if my mother would still be working at fast food restaurants, unless if I could work as a child and bring back money to get her to go put me in a daycare or something of that sort of nature. This is the only option that she would have had, and no crime would have been committed around me as a child. No one hurt or harmed and attempted to be harmed in any way, shape, or form, and permission was taken from law enforcement by my mother when I was an 11-year-old child, and her fulfilling her promise to law enforcement when I became even slightly mentally mature, never for me to ever again even remotely be present in any settings where anything remotely considered bad could have been said around me ever again. So when I was an adult in pharmacy school, I didn't have any food. My stepmother would not share any food with me, and so I had to my mother was really worried. She was like, "How are you gonna get through this? How are you gonna get food?" And I saw someone in my overseas pharmacy school who was in desperate need of someone tutoring him. I went over to him and I told him straight out, "Look, I can tutor you for food, and I'll tutor you for food. I'll tutor you pharmacology, and in exchange you have to give me your home cooked food." And he agreed. And so I used to tutor him for food every single day. Basically, yeah. And I called my mother and I told her, I was like, "Look, I took care of it. You don't have to worry about it. I took care of it. Don't worry about it anymore. I took care of the problem." I took care of it as an adult when I was in school, tutoring someone pharmacology in exchange for food. I took care of it as an adult. Her forced necessity, poverty due to being a single mother working at a Food Line grocery store, I took care of it as an adult. If I went back in time right now, there's no other option. She'd be working in fast food restaurants. The only option she would have is to be getting permission from law enforcement when I was an 11-year-old child and putting me with anyone willing to watch me for free, unless she wanted me to run out of the door alone, like how she said on February 15, or set the house on fire. That was the only option till I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity. And you have to understand the fact that people that are narrating this and trying to exaggerate it, like my dad, the greedy framer, are begging me for forgiveness all day, night long, sending me blackmail price tags, asking me to commit incest with his sisters. His framer sisters, like Farah the greedy framer, have been begging me to marry her daughters, basically any one of them, clearly showing greed and envy and the fact that they've lied against me over and over and over again. With Farah the greedy framer being an expert at fabricating false testimonies, she fabricated a false testimony against this very law enforcement team that she claims to be patriotic and good men in the year 2019, where she told the Pakistani government that these people in this very law enforcement team, this very one, the person who basically gets the monthly money from the unemployment disability fraud every month, so about 2 months ago, Farah the greedy framer told the Pakistani government in 2019 that letting people from U.S. law enforcement into their country is against their national security interest, and it's a risk. These people in U.S. law enforcement, this very team in U.S. law enforcement that she's claiming is patriotic and good men right now, only because they're helping her get revenge from me not wanting to marry her ugly looking abnormal daughters that she sent me 70 requests, 70 requests since June 16th, the past month and a half. 70 requests this psycho woman has sent me for me to be forced into signing a prenup agreement with one of her ugly looking abnormal daughters. They're basically helping her get revenge for me not wanting her daughters. But you have to understand the fact that Farah the greedy framer has proven herself to be a master fabricator and exaggerator. In the year 2019, Farah the greedy framer, basically what she ended up doing was she went and she told the Pakistani government at that time that letting people from U.S. law enforcement, this very U.S. law enforcement team with the person who gets the unemployment monthly money every single month, is risk to the national security to the country of Pakistan, since these people in U.S. law enforcement were raping and murdering the woman over there. She went and she told this to the government in Pakistan in 2019, due to which all of U.S. law enforcement was almost kicked out of that country, raising national security risk in that country. The same drama that she tried to do against me on November 20th, where the crime and setting did not even exist. She did the same exact drama against them in 2019, against the people that she's now claiming to be patriotic and good men. Whether they are patriotic and good men or not is a separate issue. Fact of the matter is, if it was as bad and exaggerated as she claimed in 2019, where there were these people, this very law enforcement team was a threat to national security in Pakistan in 2019, then she would not be claiming them to be patriotic and good men right now as we speak. Clearly showing from facts and evidences that she fabricated a false testimony against this very law enforcement team with the person who gets the monthly money from unemployment disability fraud every single month. This very law enforcement team, she claimed in Pakistan in 2019 that these people are a threat to the national security of that country, since they are raping and murdering their woman, and they should be kicked out of the country, due to which every single news agency in that country at that time, if she disagrees that she didn't cause panic and mass panic and chaos, I will start naming news anchors from that country in 2019 who were agreeing with Farah the greedy framer that U.S. law enforcement should be kicked out of that country. If she disagreed with me and I see any signs of her disagreeing with me, I will start naming journalists in that country in 2019 in Pakistan who were agreeing with Farah the greedy framer, saying that U.S. law enforcement should be kicked out of that country of Pakistan in 2019 because they were a national security risk who were raping and murdering their woman, only for her to now claim that these are patriotic and good men, only because she sent me 70 requests to get that brain savant money that artificial intelligence has literally marked as the most rare and profitable in the world, where I could literally make something like 5-hour energy drink that Manoj Bhargava made once in a lifetime, literally every 30 days of my life. clearly showing from facts and evidences from the different brain savant tests that were done through artificial intelligence, August 9, 2022 for 6 hours, November 14, 2025, mid-May 2023, May 10, 2026, June 24, 2026, and other ones that were literally secretly done by law enforcement. Fer the Greedy Framer wants that money now for her daughters, and she wants to use law enforcement, this very law enforcement team, whom she created so much drama against in the year 2019 that every single news anchor in the country of Pakistan was against U.S. law enforcement in 2019, and they all wanted U.S. law enforcement out of their country because Fer the Greedy Framer claimed in 2019 that this very law enforcement team, with the person who gets the monthly money from the unemployment disability fraud, are a threat to national security of that country. Because they're raping and murdering their woman, not saying that that person was the person that Fer the Greedy Framer was sleeping with right before she made that exaggerated and false testimony against this law enforcement team, and that and then she created so much mass panic and chaos that the Indian government was basically forced to go and lecture Joe Biden on human rights crimes due to them not knowing that Fer the Greedy Framer had been sleeping with that person from before, only to realize that the person was not as rich as he claimed, as he was, due to which she wanted revenge for being scammed into sleeping with someone, and she literally almost had the entire U.S. law enforcement kicked out of the country of Pakistan in 2019 as revenge for basically being scammed into sleeping with someone who was not as rich as she thought he was. That's how much drama she created in 2019. Literally claimed that U.S. law enforcement being in the country of Pakistan in 2019 was a threat to their national security because they were raping and murdering their woman, and news anchors were actually quoting Fer the Greedy Framer and saying that she was right and that these people, U.S. law enforcement, should be kicked out of that country for good because of one person. That was Fer the Greedy Framer. That's how good she is. So November 20th, when she made the false testimony against me that we know she was involved in because the government informant named her and kicked her out of the spokesperson stand as soon as he was announced to being the government informant, where the crime and setting didn't even exist, and yet no news anchor after November 20th, 2025 was able to smile on live TV for days afterwards, despite the crime and setting not even existing against me, was not the first time Fer the Greedy Framer had created mass panic and chaos against someone based on a false testimony where the crime and setting didn't even exist. She created national security risk against this very law enforcement team in 2019 in the country of Pakistan, where every single law enforcement team was almost kicked out of that country in 2019, where Fer the Greedy Framer claimed in 2019 that these people were in this law enforcement team, very law enforcement team, the person who receives the monthly money from the unemployment disability fraud, are a threat to national security in that country because they're raping and murdering their woman. And now she's calling them patriotic and good men, clearly showing from facts and evidences that regardless of whether they are patriotic and good men or not, is a separate issue with people that are running sex schemes since 2001, Uncle Joe's in-laws and money fraud right now. Whether they are patriotic and good men or not is a separate issue. But the fact of the matter is, Fer the Greedy Framer raised national security risk in a separate country in 2019, almost getting all of U.S. law enforcement kicked out of that country based on her exaggerated and false testimonies, clearly showing even before November 20th that she's an expert fabricator, expert exaggerator, and November 20th was not the first time she's done this. She had done this before, and she literally almost convinced every single news anchor in that country in 2019 to kick out U.S. law enforcement for good based on national security risks that she raised in 2019 against U.S. law enforcement, not saying that she was sleeping with the person she was accusing right before she accused him after finding out that he was not the rich man he claimed he was, to get revenge from one person scamming her into sleeping with him without being the rich person that he claimed he was. To get revenge from that one person, she had literally had the entire U.S. law enforcement kicked out of that country for good almost. And if further the Greedy Framer denies that she did this, I will start naming journalists that I know for a fact in the country of Pakistan were agreeing with further the Greedy Framer that U.S. law enforcement should be kicked out. The same very law enforcement team that she's now claiming to be patriotic and good men, whether the people running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001 and money fraud for years and years are patriotic and good men or not is a separate issue. But the fact of the matter is, it clearly shows us that she was fabricating and exaggerating in 2019 against this very law enforcement team, only to get revenge from one person being able to sleep with her after scamming her into sleeping with him, claiming that he was a rich person, only for her to find out that he was not. Yeah. And that comes to show us exactly why her psycho brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, always uses her for incest bait, like how he used on February 11th through 17 a.m., then again for March 7th, 2026, 3 times, and then again, my dad, the Greedy Framer, uses his sister's offering on March 10th every single day afterward, since he knows the kind of bad character that these people are of clearly. So that's all I had to say about my child journal.